Hey everyone, what's going on? Welcome back. I'm here in a little, excuse the unorthodox filming location. I'm here in Anaheim, California. I recently have wrapped up attending BlizzCon, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about, it was an interesting convention, and I might make a video just talking about how the convention was as a whole. But I wanted today to talk about what was definitely like the most interesting, biggest thing for me out of the whole thing, and that, believe it or not, was World of Warcraft. Yes, we are here. We are in the year 2023, some like 20 years after the original game released, and I'm still talking about World of Warcraft. Would you believe it? But yeah, it was in a lot of ways the most interesting and exciting thing for me out of the convention. In particular, World of Warcraft Classic and the Classic Plus, as it were, that they're doing in what is called the Season of Discovery. I got to play it, or at least I got to play the new 10-man level 25 end game that they're having, because with this new thing, they're having this tiered end game progression. There's actually just a whole lot of really interesting stuff about this that I'm really excited for. And to the point where I'm like, I can safely say this is like the most excited I've been about WoW, at least since Classic originally launched in 2019, right? This sounds really awesome to me, and I'm really looking forward to checking it out. So I just want to talk a bit about what it is in general, and then also share my thoughts having played it, or at least a portion of it. So what is Season of Discovery? Well, this is going to be a new season for WoW Classic, and basically the whole premise is this. There are new discoveries hidden throughout Azeroth that are going to reward new skills and talents for every class to provide not only new variety for those classes, but also going about introducing some new roles, and that includes things like introducing tanking warlocks or a mage healer into Classic WoW. Now, also along with this, they're doing this kind of tiered rollout and a tiered end game as it goes up. So it's going to start out when it first comes out with a level 25 cap, and along with that is going to be new level 25 end game content. That end game content includes a new level 25 specific 10-person raid, which I got to play a bunch here at the convention, and it's one of the main reasons I decided to make this video, because I was like, this is really cool. I'm really enjoying this. This is actually like the most interesting thing to me out of everything they talked about at BlizzCon. So, but then also they're doing things like adding new open world PvP activities and its own set of rewards for that. So they're taking the classic experience, they're capping it and making this progressive end game that goes up towards 60, and they're adding new stuff within it. And that's basically the classic experience plus some things. They made that joke themselves at the kind of the deep dive panel that they did. It's Classic Plus. This is basically what they're taking on Classic Plus, and in a lot of ways, this is actually what I always envisioned WoW would expand, how they would expand. You know, when I played back in 2004, 2005, when original vanilla WoW was there, and I was obsessed at the time, playing all the time with my friends, right? And when I thought about them expanding upon WoW, I just thought about making the world that existed, those two main continents, deeper, more expansive, and adding things within them. And then they were like, hey, Outlands, we're in this whole new place with space cows. And I'm like, what? Like, I liked Burning Crusade, and I liked Wrath of the Lich King, and I've liked a lot of WoW expansions, but I always just, there's a special place in my heart for those two main areas, and that is what they're going to be building upon. That is what they're expanding upon here, and that is really exciting to me. So I want to dive into each of the different sections now, and then also talk about my hands-on time with that raid. So discoveries, like I said, the basic idea with this is they're adding new things. They're taking the original world and they're adding a bit of flair to it to try to make it, well, just new things for you to see. As the name implies, this is meant to create a sense of discovery in what is otherwise a solved game. These discoveries, along with the changes that they're making with this new additional content, are meant to shake that up a bit. So the game is going to start out just like traditional Classic WoW. You're going to make your level 1 character, and whatever your starting zone is, you're going to go through all the quests. All of that is going to stay the same. But as you're going about the leveling process in that beginning area, eventually you're going to come across a quest that asks you to locate your first discovery. These are brand new secrets. Many times this will be in the form of a chest, but not always, all around Azeroth that reward new class abilities. And they've also talked about the fact that there might be discoveries that reward something that's not just a class ability. They're going to actually separate it from this system as well. Maybe this means new interesting loot or whatever, I guess. I don't know what it can mean besides loot and currency and abilities, but there's a lot of things that people much more creative than myself could probably come up with for potential discoveries that you could find out in the world. So you're going to get that quest, you go about, you get your first discovery, and this is going to actually reward you with a new special ability or talent for whatever class it is that you're playing. But that is only for the first one. It is only that initial discovery quest that is actually going to point you in the direction where you can locate it. Everything else after that has to be found yourself. These are going to be unmarked and will be, in a lot of times, very difficult to find locations. Sometimes it might just be a simple chest that is hidden somewhere in the world, in the back of a cave that you visited 1,000 times. All of a sudden there's a chest that has a class ability, or maybe it's behind a waterfall. That's a great place to put chest. Maybe they put one there. Otherwise, you might actually have to navigate a jumping puzzle. You may have to climb atop buildings and trees or up some mountaintops to find one of these discoveries. Or there may be, and they've even said this as much, there may be some discoveries locked behind a door or some contraption that requires multiple players working together in order to actually gain access to. Either way, the end result is you're going to find a discovery, and that discovery is going to unlock a brand new class skill or talent in the form of this new thing called the Rune System. These runes, once you have one, is going to actually show up in your character panel. They're calling this rune engraving, and how it works is that anytime you're out of combat, you can freely swap from one rune to another of the runes that you've unlocked. Now, the reason it's in the gear panel is because it's actually almost like an enchantment. The runes you unlock are going to be broken up into categories based on the gear slots. I'm not sure if they've said they're going to be runes for every gear slot, but at least in the build that we played up to level 25, there were 3 slots. I believe they were gloves, pants, and chest, I believe, were the 3 slots that we could enchant in the build that we played. And that's at level 25. As it goes up, you'll be unlocking more runes and more slots will be unlocking along with that. But yes, you find a discovery, however you go about finding it. Only the first one is actually gonna be revealed to you. Everything else actually needs to be found organically. And they have said to go along with this, because you might say, oh, well, everyone's gonna find it on day 1 and we're gonna know where all the secret discoveries are. You won't, because they're not gonna be doing a PTR for that very reason. They want there to be a global community sense of discovery of these discoveries. And with that said, yes, this is definitely gonna be one of those situations where the very best time to play the Season of Discovery, if you want like the most immersive version of this experience, is going to be right away when the season first goes live. But there you go. You're gonna have these discoveries. You find these discoveries, they go in this new rune engraving panel, and then at any point of any of the discoveries that you've unlocked, you can put that stuff on your gear, and that gives you new skills, like active abilities, but also passive talents. An example, what exactly are we talking about? Well, I played as the mage primarily, and I was going with a pretty boring build. I just basically took all of the frost version of things, so there were things like Icy Veins, Fingers of Frost, and Ice Lance. I did that because I was raiding with a group and I wanted to make sure I was actually helping them as much as possible. But there's also going to be ones that open up all new playstyles, so that is going to include things like adding healing for a mage. So the mage healing ability that I saw was basically a single target and a group version of what more or less was functionally the same. You sent out a heal, either one target or multi-target, and then within a span of a certain amount of seconds, whatever percentage of the damage you dealt would also then be applied as a heal. And that is actually a big part of what they're doing with this discovery thing, is opening up new roles for classes that wouldn't otherwise fill them in Classic. And those roles included things like making an actual legitimate warlock tank, or they even mentioned a rogue tank or a shaman tank, or adding healing to classes that otherwise wouldn't be healers. They're really trying to be playful with this and mixing things up, but then also adding abilities that you know of in the past for other classes. Like I did spend a little bit of time on a paladin, and I found out that some of the runes I had access to included Crusader Strike and Divine Storm, and there were a few other ret abilities. There were also a few tanking abilities, including an actual legitimate taunt for the paladin, which, as we know, wasn't actually the case originally when vanilla first came out. Now, I think what's most interesting about this is like the sheer volume of what we're talking about for runes here. They mentioned that there are going to be over 100 runes just in that initial launch, in that 1 to 25 bracket. 100 runes amongst the classes to find from 1 to 25, and as the brackets move up and as they expand upon this, more runes will be coming with that. So there's going to be a lot of active abilities and talents or passives that will be coming through this rune system, which is really cool. So as for the tiered release, as I mentioned, when Season of Discovery first comes out, they're going to be having a cap of level 25, and this was for a few reasons. They said one of which was to just give players time to reach the cap. They don't want it to feel like it has to be a massive grind within the first couple of weeks, everyone sweating and playing non-stop. Another Another thing was to give people time to gear up, and that sort of goes hand in hand with that, to go around and actually go about the process of finding those discoveries, because again, this isn't going to be a known quantity when the Season of Discovery first comes out. The community is going to have to go out and find out. They're going to have to find those 100+ runes for their level 25 characters, and they want to give time for that. They said somewhere around a few weeks to a month, maybe a couple months is what we'll be looking at with that cap of level 25, and then that is going to increase over time. There will be a second tier where the cap is 40, a third tier where the cap is 50, and then the final tier where the cap is, as you expect it to be, 60. And this is great for a lot of reasons, and one of the reasons I'm actually really excited that they're doing this. One of the main things is it creates these like temporary end games with their very own metas. That was actually one of the really fun things when the classic WoW first launched in 2019. Not even launched, when we had the beta and there was a cap, and the cap was either level 25 or 30, I don't remember, but it created its very own meta because it is very different what the best builds are going to be when you know everyone is stuck at level, let's say 30. I think it was 30. When everyone's stuck at level 30, the best in slot gear for the classes, the different builds that are going to be best for the classes are vastly different than the leveling builds that people would have had when they were going to be blowing past 30 in an afternoon because they just were planning to keep on leveling. And creating these mini end games as we progress towards the final end game of level 60 is something that's really interesting to me. It was actually one of the main reasons why early on back in the day in Vanilla, in Burning Crusade, in Wrath of the Lich King, I and a lot of other people I know really liked low-level battlegrounds. And what was so interesting about that is that they had their own metas, that the class balance was different. I remember just hunters and rogues destroying everyone, but it's just interesting because it's different, because it removes the known quantity aspect of vanilla WoW, and it also, along with these discovery things, it freshens things up a little bit, but still keeps it authentic to its core, or at least that's the hope. That's what we hope they do. My biggest concern, if anything, right now is going to be the sheer number of runes that they're introducing. Again, there's 100 of them just for the level 25 cap. That's a lot of new abilities and returning abilities. Like I mentioned, there are a lot of abilities that are just ones that came in a future expansion, so they're just being rolled into this. I worry that it's not going to feel as classic if they go too overboard with this. And one thing that I've seen brought up and answered in interviews is concerns about the power creep and us getting way too strong, and then Classic not feeling like Classic for that reason. And they have answered this by saying that they're going to try to make sure that doesn't happen, and that they're totally fine and are even intending to tune up the overworld mobs so that that doesn't happen. They're going to try to make sure that while they want us to feel powerful and like these runes are good, we're not feeling too overpowered. They're going to try to make sure to avoid that. We'll see how good of a job they do or not. Now let's talk about the new content that's coming with this other than the new runes, and that first and foremost is in the form of the raid. So like I said, there will be a 10-man level 25 raid for us to encounter. This will be basically our end game for the level 25 cap. This is going to be a tuned up and new altered version of Black Fathom Deeps. It includes a revamped layout, new bosses, as well as brand new loot. And this loot, which was blue from what I saw, at least from the first few bosses, is likely going to be best in slot for that starting level 25 end game. Now, I played through this. I spent a couple of hours actually, I kept going back to the show floor, re-entering the line and getting new groups. And there was actually one time where we had there's a time limit of 30 minutes, and there was one time where the group that I was with actually managed to clear this, and this was pretty cool. So I want to talk a little bit about the bosses. First boss is a water elemental, Baron Aquinas. He actually sits just after that initial hallway that you walk through, atop those little pillars and with a body of water beneath him. So he had a few things. First, we had to clear the ads in the area because we actually had to get access to these little stones or artifacts, and there was either 2 or 3 of them that we had to click on before the boss was even targetable. Once we clicked on these, it made the boss able to be attacked, and then we were able to engage. Now, the boss did a few things from what I could tell. I was playing ranged DPS, as I mentioned earlier. I was playing as a frost mage, basically. Now, one thing that he did is he put what was basically a living bomb on a target. He put a debuff. After a few seconds, that target would explode. It would deal some damage and knock a bunch of people up, or it was either people in the vicinity or the entire party, but we got knocked up in the air, and because you're fighting on this platform, that ended up meaning that you got knocked in the water. Now, if you were in the water, you'd want to get yourself back up, and there were actually little bubbles down there that you could get a little speed boost on. But the difficult thing was just actually staying on the boss. Now, for my particular group, we decided to have some of the range characters just kind of stand on the shoreline, and we were still actually able to reach with our abilities, with our range attacks, to still be able to reach the boss. So it was really just the melee that had to focus and deal with getting knocked up, falling in the water, and then finding their way back up to the boss. But that boss is pretty simple, pretty straightforward. It was the first boss after all. The second boss is the big turtle, Gamu Ra. He had a few interesting abilities. It was pretty tank and spank from what I could tell for the tank and healers, but he had this massive defensive shield, like this orb around him that would heavily reduce incoming damage. And also, he would periodically spit out bubbles that if walked into would explode, dealing a bit of damage. So basically, we just want to make sure we didn't blow through all of our mana while he had the damage reduction shield, and we wanted to make sure that we avoided the bubbles that sped out on the ground around him. And then after a while, there would be an announcement that the bubble was about to pop, at which case he did some massive AoE damage around him. It was a pretty wide vicinity. I'm not actually certain if you can actually avoid that damage. We couldn't tell, but whatever. He popped, the bubble dropped, and then all of a sudden the damage that you dealt to him was not reduced, and that was once we just pumped the damage at that point. And then the bubble comes back and you rinse and repeat over and over again. That was that fight. And then the third boss was a Nagawish lady, Saraves, I think that's pronounced. Couple of things, I'm not actually sure of all the mechanics of this fight. He had one where she would debuff certain party members, and then after a while casting chain lightning on them. There was one where placed at her feet or something would be this like big frost trap, and then if you got caught in the frost trap, you would get frozen. And we did actually find out that you could pull the mobs through that frost trap and it would freeze them as well, because she would periodically summon mobs. So that was really helpful because you could basically use her ability against her adds as a form of CC. And we managed to clear it within the 30-minute window. There was only one group. I played with 4 groups total, and with one of them we were able to actually clear all 3 bosses. And hey, good loot. It was blue loot, which if you played vanilla, you'll know just regular blue gear is pretty awesome to get. And it was just really cool to see and know that like I was playing classic WoW, but was also getting a fresh take on the experience. And I think that's what I'm most excited about. I'm not even as excited about the whole rune system or getting new abilities. I care less about that than I do about the fact that they're gonna be adding new content to the base game. And they've teased a bunch of other stuff. As I mentioned, that the cap is gonna start at level 25, and then it's gonna go 40, 50, and eventually 60. And they've talked about the fact that as they work up to that point, they will be continuing to add new additional content to that. They've teased some things like Nomrigan, Scarlet Monastery, the Crypts. There's a whole bunch of different things that it seems like, and different directions that they can go in. And that is really what leads to my excitement about this. And I haven't even touched on the open PvP thing. There's going to be open world PvP. They're basically taking Ashen Vale and turning it into like some sort of spin-off of Alteric Valley, where there will be faction leaders for both the Horde and the Alliance, and multiple camps that boost up those leaders. You kill the camps, you make the leaders weaker, you kill the leader. And all the while, PvP between the two factions is going to be happening. Now with open world PvP, even without like objectives like this, the biggest concern is always going to be faction imbalance. How are they going to deal with that? Is one streamer going to be completely imbalancing the factions on multiple servers? Absolutely. You know that's going to happen, and that's just a consequence of the modern reality of gaming and the connectivity and the people following people onto servers in these kind of games. I don't know how they're going to deal with that. I don't know if they can deal with that, but either way, I still like open world PvP regardless, as long as it's not a complete Zerg fest and one side totally rolling over the other. I'm even happy to be the underdog on occasion, but I love open world PvP in these games. It was some of my favorite, and some of the memories that have stuck with me the most from Vanilla and BC and Wrath were open world PvP moments. That speaks volumes in and of itself. There was a lot to it. There's a lot of excitement and adrenaline and endorphins that come with that whole experience of open world PvP, both on the giving and the receiving end, as it were. But them adding these new contents and them expanding upon the original classic with this classic plus in their seasons of discovery, I can't wait to see what they do. I think there's so much potential, and this is in a lot of ways, this is how I envisioned WoW when I first started playing WoW. Because I didn't envision space cows and flying out into other dimensions. I didn't envision... Northrend is cool, but so maybe I envisioned Northrend, but I didn't envision a lot of where WoW went over the years, and that's nothing against any of the expansions. I've played every one except for Dragonflight. I just haven't jumped in yet. I will eventually, probably at the end of the expansion. But when I first started playing the game and I envisioned it growing over time, this is the sort of stuff that I envisioned. I envisioned a Scarlet Monastery raid. I envisioned a lot of those areas where we would be doing wall climbing, like pixel by pixel, like space W, space W, space W, climbing yourself up atop the inside of Ironforge, or climbing climbing and finding your way into the crypts and all these different areas, going out of bounds and all these different areas, and finding these like work in progress things of those original 2 continents, them adding to and expanding upon that is what I always imagined, and that seems like it can be what Classic Plus WoW Classic Seasons of Discovery can deliver and may deliver, and I'm hopeful and I'm excited to see what they do. I don't know if I said this at the top, but if I haven't, I'll just say it now. This is the most excited I've been about World of Warcraft, at least since 2019. So I'm really looking forward to what they're going to do with this. I think there's a whole lot of potential, and it sounds really interesting. So we'll see what happens very soon, because they're going to be launching Season of Discovery in just a few weeks on November 30th. And as I mentioned, 0 PTR. They're not going to do a PTR because they want the Season of Discovery to be about discovery with everybody. And with that, that's going to do it for today. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Again, apologize for the unorthodox filming location. I also apologize if the audio was scuffed a little bit as I'm recording out here in a pavilion while people are trying to clean up after BlizzCon. But it is what it is. I just wanted to talk about this. And yeah, there you go. That's it for me today. I'm looking forward to this quite a lot. So that's all there is to say. Season of Discovery. Can't wait. Hope to see you there. Take it easy, guys. See ya.